All right, good morning. Welcome to Statistics. My name is Mark Fannensteel. I'm going to be your instructor. So you can call me Mark, you can call me Mr. P, you can call me Mr. Fannensteel, whatever you feel comfortable with, that's going to work. All right. So we have that. So I do my Zoom meetings for this, and I do my little lectures like this. I have three cats. One of them is not fixed because she has a heart issue, so she can't deal with anesthetic. So occasionally she will make herself known. Okay, not today, she's quiet, but if she gets to be too loud, I'll introduce you. Okay, so let me go over syllabus with us for a little bit. I'm not going to read every word of this for us, but we'll try. So this is a completely online class. So I have a Zoom meeting room that you can attend. Okay, the idea is that I will be available Monday through Thursday, 12 to 2. Okay, you don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want. If you don't feel comfortable with that, then don't do it. Okay, so I like to do it. At least I hope I have the right idea here. But because it gives you guys a chance to see me and understand what's going on, and you can see my facial expressions and my body language, etc. So it's nice if you do, but at the same time, I'm not going to get too pressed if you decide like, no, I don't want to do the camera. Like, okay, that's cool. Not everybody's into that. That's fine. So let's see here. We're going to go through this. I do not have Alex, that's your homework platform, up on the website just yet. I will be getting that done hopefully by end of business today. So you guys will have access to all of that. When that is there, I will give you a tour. It's like, here's what you do. Here's how you get through all of it. Here's the buttons you press. Okay, and we'll go through all of that. Again, since it's 100% online, we use Respondus. So you're going to need a camera. You're going to have to do an environment check, things like that. In order to do that, it should take place inside of Alex. So the same environment you're doing your homework in should be the same environment you're doing your testing in. Okay, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue with that one. All right. We have still not joined the 21st century, so we still have you guys use a calculator. Okay, so I suggest the TI-83, TI-84. I've got an emulator on my computer, so that's where I show you how to do things. I'm not sure if Alex has a calculator embedded in it or not. Okay, I haven't poked around with it yet. But if you live in the Albuquerque area and you attend CNM, you can check one out on the library, and you could do that for at least 3 hours. It might be longer. Okay, so don't rush out and buy yourself a calculator. You could go to the library, give them your ID card, and then get a calculator for a time being. Please practice on it, okay, because that's what's going to help. Most of what we do now, the heavy lifting, the math is on the calculator. So if you are trying to memorize a bunch of formulas, you're doing this wrong. Okay, that's not how stats is taught anymore. We did that in the 1970s. It was horrific, but that is not the experience you guys are going to have. Okay, a lot of it is calculator. I hate the fact that it's here's how to use your calculator kind of a class, but that's kind of what it's evolved to. Okay, so I'll try to make it a little bit more relevant to your day-to-day life. And you don't need a calculator to do all of this stuff, but in order to get through the class and do the homework problems and do the quiz questions, we're still tied to the calculator. I'm sorry for that, but that's the way that is. Okay. So yeah, that's how we do that. Okay, let's see here. Right. How do you do well in the class? All right, the way I've set it up is I don't do tests, I just do quizzes, so there isn't a midterm. There is a final, okay? But pretty much we have 6 quizzes that we're going to have. I might have to adjust these. 6 quizzes, they're on every even week. There should be 6 questions. There might be more if it's multiple choice, right? I think one short answer question is like worth 2 multiple choice questions. So there might be as many as a dozen, but those would be really short kind of questions. Okay, that would be like single answer. There's no showing your work on that kind of a thing. There's multiple choice. I just want you to answer the question and be able to do that. Later on in the semester, the problems are a little bit more complicated. There is a more essay-ish sort of a quality to some of those questions, and I think Alex will provide us the amount of room that we need to do that. But I have to double check as well. Okay, so we'll go through and look at that. Okay, so let's see here. So yeah, we have a quiz pretty much every even week. I try to put a quiz on there. I think this works for a lot of students because you're not trying to cram 3 weeks, 5 weeks worth of knowledge into your brains at any one time. They're short. Okay, so it's every other week. It's like, hey, what did we do this week? What did we do last week? That's what your quiz is going to be on. Okay. When we get close to doing quizzes, I usually do a video like this and explain to you guys like, hey, there's going to be a problem like, and then like for the first one, like for some of the quizzes, like, hey, what kinds of data is this going to be? Okay. Can we do a graphical summary? Okay, and again, we'll see how Alex deals with all of this. These problems used to be incredibly tedious to do on a computer. I will try to minimize that because as fun as graphical summaries are, being graded on them to the exacting standards of software can be kind of a pain. So we'll see what that looks like. But we'll see if we can't find more interpretation questions rather than do it questions. Okay, so again, calculators, by all means, please go to the library, check one out. Do not spend $100 on a calculator. Okay, they're going to be obsolete soon anyway because you guys all have phones, and even though we have to keep you from getting to the internet somehow while using the phones, or we could ask much harder questions, but I'd rather figure out a way to like not have you access the internet and not ask really hard questions. So that's why that's the way that's done. Okay, we'll see how that's going to work. All right, so let's see here. How to do well in the class. Okay, the beginning part of statistics is very misleading. It's going to seem like a sociology class, or it's going to seem like a social studies class for a while, and you're like, this isn't that bad. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, it's a math class. Okay, you're doing homework, you're going to be doing problems, there's procedures you're going to have to know how to do. Okay, so that's just the cold hard facts of it. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, but don't get, when you first start this, it's going to seem rather underwhelming, and it's going to seem like, wow, this isn't that bad of a class at all. And then we're going to get to chapter 6, and you're like, oh, this got real. So I would urge you to treat it as a math class and do your homework and practice. Again, the calculator does a lot of the heavy lifting, so it's not on you to memorize a bunch of formulas, but it is on you to know which buttons to press. Okay. In the past, I've included formula sheets to exams. Well, again, we'll see how Alex deals with that. They may not let us do that so much, but they may not have much of an expectation that you memorize formulas. I hope you don't have an expectation to memorize formulas because we live in the 21st century. If you need a formula, you can just get your phone, look up the formula. You have to know how to use it, but you shouldn't be carrying that information around in your head. Okay, this is not 1972. We don't need that. Okay, so that's how you do well in a stats class. Don't let this first couple of chapters lull you into this is going to be easy, because again, as soon as we get to chapter 6, it ain't going to be easy. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be impossible, but that's where people tend to start having difficulties. So if you haven't made a habit of doing your homework, this is where people tend to not do well. Okay, so it's still math class. You still have to do your homework. Please do your homework. And a lot of times they are going to ask you for interpretation of like, hey, what does this mean? Okay, so that's something to pay attention to as well. Okay, so how did I come across doing stats? When I was young, I was, back in the 70s when I went to elementary school, they were not kind about telling you which group you were in. So when they had their little groups, they had the gold group, the silver group, and the bronze group. Like, we watched the Olympics. We knew what the medals meant. Okay. I was in zinc. All right. So I was not the astute student. Okay. Did not do well. I was not a advanced student in math or anything else for that matter. But I played D&D with my friends, and they were all the smart kids. But we played these games where they required us to roll a couple of dice, and I figured out that if you roll, that 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, occasionally, those came up pretty often. Doubles, not so much. 2s and 12s did not come up very often. So I just made that observation. So I started trading for game pieces that would reward that middle of the pack sort of mentality. And I started winning. And then they got mad at me and they said I was cheating because I couldn't be that smart. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, it's dice. How am I supposed to cheat? I'm not messing with the dice. But I used to play D&D with those kids, and that was a lot of fun. And figuring out like how to make a challenging encounter, I needed to figure out how do I make it so that it isn't a sure thing every time. So that's why I started looking at probability and started getting into all of this stuff. I used to work at a jewelry factory doing quality control. We sold to QVC, so we're not talking about the highest quality jewelry here. QVC is like a budget home shopping network if you've never seen that on cable, which I wouldn't blame you. But QVC would actually, like, they would tell us like your stuff isn't good enough, and we'd have to come in on the weekend. Like the IT people, me, would have to come in on the weekend to assemble jewelry. So we had to teach the people like how do you do quality control? How do you deal with that? And it was really fascinating because you get to figure out that people lie to you and how they lie and how to catch them. And I'm not saying any of these people were bad people. It's like they're just working a 9-to-5 job. I get it. Like, they're not bad people for wanting to get their job done and go home. I understand. But at the same time, it's like, look, if you have to check them in a certain way in order to make sure that they're doing it right. Otherwise, I have to come in on Saturday to make up the difference, and I didn't like to do that. So that's how I kind of came about doing stats, and I really enjoyed the fact it was like, how do you do this? Most of my stats have been done. I went to New Mexico Tech, so a lot of my stats were things like measuring gas mileage, measuring how old a fossil is, what's the tensile strength of a metal, kind of a thing. Like, those kinds of applications are something I'm really used to. For those of you going into psychology, you have a much, much harder job. The psychologists are usually much better statisticians, because when I measure a fossil for like, hey, how much radioactive material is left, or what's the gas mileage, let me go ahead and count that. They don't lie to me. Whereas psychologists, when you're studying people, hey, did you wash your hands after you used the restroom? People will lie to you. So you have a much harder task at hand, is to figure out, like, when your measurements are lying to you, you have to be more clever about what you're doing. So I think it's a fascinating topic. I'm not that good at that part of it, but most of the time, most freshman stats, okay, the class you're in, they try to be very straightforward with their questions, and they don't try to throw those kinds of curveballs at you. You should learn the basics first, okay, and then we can move to other pieces, okay? So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction. I tried to give you, like, how do you do well? Please do your homework. The Zoom will be there. And again, if 12 to 2 doesn't work for you, please let me know. We can arrange something else and try to figure out a different alternate time for us. That's fine. And we'll do that. So welcome to the class. Hopefully that was helpful. And I look forward to seeing all of you. All right. Thank you.